All right, let's begin our review. Two. So remember, um, if your item, so this question here asks you to identify if it's a simple statement or a compound statement. Reminder, if we have two elements or subject, we have two subjects connect with the or, then we know that this is a compound statement, and this will be our disjunction. So again, the or statement is a disjunction. And again, this one here, my cousin each have some sort of an engineering degree, which is only one subject, which is the degree here. So it's a simple statement. And if you see this item, which is again, if and only if, which is again, if there's a conditional, which is if and only, this would be a compound reminder that this thing here will be a biconditional statement. Reminder, a conjunction is your and statement. The disjunction is your or statement. The condition is the if and then statement. And the biconditional is the if and only if statement. So for this particular problem or question, they just ask you, can you verify? Can you ask or see, is it a compound statement or a simple statement? And now looking at this item, they give you simple statement, the dress is not green, and they ask you give each of this statement bottom on here, is this a negation? Reminder, the negation of the dress is green. The only negation is, well, there are two forms of negation. The one form of the negation is, hey, all to do is take out the word not. Again, the dress is not green. If we take away the word not, then that will give us the dress is green, which is, this will be the negation, which is the opposite of your original statement. Remember, I told you do not change the subject. The subject is green. Do not change it to brown because it will be a different statement. Again, anything that is not green is not our original statement. So if it's not green, then it's not our statement. If they were to change this to be, if they were to change this to be green, then now we have something in term that we need to look at. If they say it is not the case that the dress is not green, then that is other form of the negation. Again, the other form of the negation of the statement will be it is not true, or in this it is not the case that the dress is not green. If this were to be one of your statements, then this is the other form of the negation. It's just they tell you it's not the case or it is not true. Whatever the item were or whatever the statement is, this statement is not true. So again, as long as they keep you green, then it will be related to our original statement here. If nothing, if it's not green, then it's not the statement, so it cannot be the negation of the statement if it's not correlate to our original statement. Okay, so that make sure you have the same subject throughout. Now let's take a look number 3, which is they ask you to translate from word to symbolic and then translate symbolic back to word. So again, looking at this item here, reminder, whenever you see that it is not the case, whenever you see that the item is not the case, meaning it's negation. So when you translate this item here and they ask you it is not the case, meaning you have to put the negation on the outside of the connector, which is again a reminder, the connector in here, which is the or statement, So when you do this thing here, looking at this item, so Jessica is in chemistry class, which is that's your Q, or Adu is in reading class, which is again because it say it is not the case, meaning it's the negation is the negation of the also. If you want to, you do the De Morgan law, which is you can change the or and, but again, just translate what they have. It's just that if they say it's not the case, meaning you need to put the negation on the side of the parenthesis. And for B, they ask you, is not reading, but guy is in chemistry class. So remember, because of our original B does not have the word not, meaning now if they have the word not, we have to do the negation. The other thing that you have to remember, the word and, the word but, the word yet, those is the symbolic for that upside down V, which is the caret sign. So again, but is basically is the and statement. So in this case, you have to take the negation of the first, which is the negation of P, and Q, which is again, this is half, or we have one symbolic. Again, we have only one symbolic, moreover, in addition, or something like that. It's basically and statement. Furthermore, those item is a connector, but it's basically is and this, right? So the last item in this thing here, which is again, if you see this item, hopefully you see that, hey, this is the or connector. So they ask you to choose one of the item that we have. So if anything is related and we throw it out, it's only 3 options. So it's all connector. And again, they negation of Q, Jessica is not in chemistry class, or is not in reading, which is again the negation of Q or negation of P. So looking at this thing here, this is what they ask you to do, is translate from word to symbolic, and then translate from symbolic back to word. Let's take a look, number 4. And similarly, this is they ask you to translate to symbolic and translate back to word. So we know, hopefully you know, that if we have the word if, doesn't matter if the word if in front or in the back here, if we have the word if by itself, the connector will be a single arrow to the right, which is again, that's your connector, which is the if and then, which is in this case, if it is not snow. So what is related to snow? The snow is our P. So again, our original statement do not have the word not. So we have to put in the negation of P, which is if it is not snow, then Brian is wearing club, which is again, anything related to club would be my Q. And again, that is basically what Q is. So the negation P, single arrow Q. And again, that's what the if and then, which is a conditional statement, is. Now they ask you to find this item, and you can see that, hey, double arrow will be the and only if, which is tell you to negate, which is if and only if will be in the middle. So this will be Brian do not wear glove if and only if it is snow. So looking at this thing here, we can see that this is the only 2 if and only if item, which is this will be our answer, which is Brian is not wearing club if and only if it is not snowing. So looking at this here, this is what we have in terms of the conditional statement and the biconditional statement. So number 5, they ask you to construct the truth table. Reminder that this is basically this by itself and this by itself. If you want to on the test, or if you take a test, if you don't want to confuse yourself, just kind of zoom out one of them, block out one of them. Reminder that this is your or statement. The upside down is your or statement. And again, the or statement reminder, as long as there's a false, the result is false, which is in this case, this is false. In this case, this is false. In this case, this is false. So again, the and statement, as long as there's one false, the whole statement is false. Again, I don't see a false here. That's why it's true. Everywhere else is false. And on the other side of the spectrum, reminder, this is the or statement, and the or statement say as long as there's a true, the result is true. So again, those are the two columns I'm looking at. This is the two columns I'm comparing to, which is they tell me compare the P versus the Q. So that's the two columns, the P versus the Q. So again, the and statement, as long as there's a false, the result is false. The or statement, as long as there's a true, the result is true. So that's what we have here, which is the and statement is the third column, and the or statement is the fourth column. So they only ask you to construct the truth table. They don't ask you for tautology or anything like that. So we just go with filling in the truth table. And let's take a look at number 6. And it's out. All right, number 6, they ask you to construct reminder the and statement. And if you look at this thing here, they only give you the P and the Q, right? They ask you, but in this case, they ask you, hey, find me the P and not Q. So if you look at this thing here, if you do on paper, it's fine. But if you don't have paper, reminder, we don't have the negation of P. So not P. We don't have the negation of Q. We don't need the negation P. We don't have the negation of Q. So we insert the negation of Q. Reminder, the negation of Q, false, true, false, true, which is the opposite of Q. So it's the opposite of Q, which is the negation of Q. And now, reminder, they ask you to compare. They ask to compare P and not Q. So to compare P and not Q, reminder that this is what we have, which is looking at this thing here. Looking at this thing here, reminder that the statement and statement is as long as there's the answer is as long as there's a false, the result is false. So in this case, if you look at this thing here, again, we block out the Q, we only look at the P with negation of Q. So again, as long as this is false, I a false there, which is again, this is false, this is false. The and statement, as long as there's one false, the result is false. I don't see a false on this item right here. There's no false there, so this thing will be true. So again, the and statement, as long as there's a false, the result is false. Looking at this thing here, that would be our item. There's nothing else that we need to do. So let's take a look at number 7. And again, for this particular problem, they ask you to verify, or basically, hopefully, you can know your criteria, right? So hopefully this is what they tell you to do is, hey, take a look at this item. I know they give you A, B, and C, but reminder, if they ask you B and C, meaning we don't care about the A for the time being, right? We don't care about the A for the time being. They just ask you, hey, what is B or C? Remember, the or statement is as long as there's a true, the result is true. But I don't see a true here. So this will be a false statement because B is false and C is false. And because they are false, the result is false. And now they turn around and they say, very good. You found me the parenthesis. Whatever in the parenthesis, this represent that parenthesis. Now I want you to find me the opposite of the parenthesis. So if the parenthesis is false, the opposite will be true. And now they tell you, once you find that, combine that, or basically take a look at that negation, the negation of B or C, the negation of B or C, and combine that with the and statement, combine that with the and statement, which is the and A. Reminder that the and statement, as long as there's a false, the result is false. In this case, the A is true and this item is true, so the result will be true. Again, two of the true will never be false, right? Two of the true will never be false. The only thing that is false is if they ask you for the negation. So that's what we have in terms of this item here, which is, again, you have to decipher what they give you. Similarly, this one here, they ask you for the negation of P, which is negation of P will be whatever P is, it's going to be the opposite. So P is true, the opposite of P will be false. And now they ask you to perform the OR statement, which is they ask you Q or negation of P, which is, again, we look at Q, which is right here, negation of P, which is right here. And again, if the two items are false, the OR statement will be false. And again, once again, they tell you that's very good. You found me the parenthesis, but now I want the opposite of that, which is the opposite of the parenthesis. Whatever in the parenthesis is represented by this column, the opposite of this column will be true. And now they ask you compare this opposite, this item, compare this item right here and this item right here. So everywhere else, whatever you did, we don't look at. Reminder, we only look at two columns at most. So in this case, the and statement, one more time, the and statement is as long as there's a false, the result is false. In this case, the two items we have is not false. So that's why it's true. So looking at this thing here, this is true that we have. So again, in order for you to do this item here, you have to be good with your criteria, your truth table. And the previous one is the and the or criteria. Now we have the if and only if criteria, which is, again, you see this two item, that's the if and only if. And you see this one arrow, that's the if and then. So this is your conditional statement and the biconditional statement. So they ask you, looking at this item here, they ask you what is or if and only if P. Remember the if and only if, in order to be true, they need to be the same value. So in this case, the two items we have, they are not the same value. And if they are not the same value, then the result will be false. Now they ask you, take a look at this item here, which is, again, block this thing out. We no longer need a P. We no longer need the or, which is they tell you this item, which is Q going into the parenthesis. So again, we have T arrow F. Reminder that this single arrow, the if and then The only time that is false. The only time that is false is the first item, which is in this case, the Q is first. Error, the second item, which is your parenthesis is second. The first thing is true. The second one is false. That's the only time that this statement is false, which is, again, we finished this item here, which is they ask you for the biconditional, which is if and only if. They ask you for the conditional, which is a single error. And reminder, a single error, that's the one and only time the criteria is false. So same thing go with this item here. We can find the negation of C. Hopefully you guys say that, hey, we can find the negation of C. If C is true, the negation of C will be false. We can find B. We can find B here if we know one thing, which is, again, this is what they give you, which is they give you the and statement. They give you the and statement is true. They give you the and statement is true. And reminder, the and statement only true when both of them are true. So again, the and statement only true when both of them are true, which is in this case, this B have to be true because true and true to make the and statement to be true. Now, they ask you, what about the negation of C? The negation of C imply A. Reminder, the negation of C imply A, meaning you have to look from the negation of C going backward to A. Don't look at A going to C. You have to look at the negation of C imply A, which is if negation of C, then the result is A, meaning you have to look at the negation of C first, which is in this case, if the first thing is false, then the item is automatically true. The only time that is false is the first thing is true and the second one is false. That's the only time the conditional statement is false. And once we have this item here, they just basically tell you, we don't care anything else. We only care about the first parenthesis, which in this case, the first parenthesis represented by the and statement. If and only if the second parenthesis, which is reminder, in order for the double error to be true, they need to have the same value. So in this case, this is the same value that you have, which is that will be our answer for number 8. And again, number 9, they ask you to do the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive based on this item here, based on this statement. If the number is less than 70, then the number is less than 40. Not necessarily true, right? Again, 59 is less than 70, but 59 is not less than 40. But either way, let's take a look at this item. How do we do the converse? Reminder, the converse, I told you guys, the converse is we just flip the item. Meaning, again, the number is 70 is the first item. The number related to 40 is the second item, which is we just flip this two items, meaning the 40 go in first and the 70 go in second, which is if a number is less than 40, then the number is less than 70, which is for the if and then statement to do the converse, we flip the order. And similarly, the inverse, how do we find the inverse? Reminder, the inverse is the order stay the same. It's just that now we have to negate them, which is your original statement do not have the word not. The negation will have the word not. And again, which is, again, if the number is less than 70, then the number is not less than 70, sorry. Then the number is not less than 40, which is they ask you to find the inverse. And lastly, how do we find the contrapositive? The contrapositive is basically you take the converse of the inverse, or basically you flip them. and you negate them, which is, again, you flip them, which is the 40 will be in front and the 70 will be in the back. It's just that now we need to negate them, which is if the number is not less than 70, then the number is not less than, if the number is not less than 40, then the number is not less than 70. So again, we need to flip the inverse, which is the contrapositive. So in this case, this is what we should have, which is, again, the converse, flip them around, inverse, kept them the same, but negate them. And the contrapositive is you flip them and also negate them. So let's take a look at number 9. We are 9. Let's take a look at number 10. So this one here, this is what they ask you to do, is you have to reference back to this box. You have to reference back to this item here. So they say assume this is a jewelry box that we have. So those are your item and those are your material to making those items. So if you look at our statement is if an item made from copper, then that item is a necklace. Remember, it's the if and then statement. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to ask ourselves, hey, where is your copper? And this is what you need to ask yourself for this particular problem is there a chance? Is there a chance? Is there a possibility that this statement might be false, right? Is there a chance that this statement is false? And remember, when does this statement is false? Remember the if and then statement, the only time that is false, right? Only time that the conditional statement is false is the first item is true and the second item is false, right? That's the only time the conditional statement is false is the first item is true and the second item is false. So if you look at this item here, so we have true, copper is first, but in this case, hey, it's false. This item is not a necklace. So there is a chance, which is if you look at this criteria, this is a false statement based on if it made from copper, then that item is a necklace, which is, hey, this is made from copper. It's true, it's made from copper, but it's not a necklace. So again, looking at this thing here, you would say, well, Mr. Tran, this one is true. Yes, I agree with you. This is true. This is true. And if the first thing is true and the second one is true, it will be true. But there is a chance that this statement is false based on what we have here. Based on this jewelry box that we have, there is a possibility that this item is false or the statement is false is when it's a copper and is not a necklace, which is a pendant, right? So in this case, as long as there's a chance that this thing is false, then the whole statement will be false. We don't want to, as long as there's a chance it's false, then the whole statement we say is false because we don't want to take any chances, okay? So looking at this thing here, they ask you, hey, the other thing I want to point out that the original statement, whatever the original statement is, the contrapositive will be the same, meaning if the original statement is false, the contrapositive most likely will be false. Whatever the converse is, the inverse will be. So again, if the converse is true, then the inverse will be true, meaning again, they are equivalent. So let's take a look at how do we construct the converse here. Remember, the converse is we flip the two statements. So our two statement is, again, copper and necklace. So again, we just basically move the necklace in front, which is if the item is a necklace. If the item is a necklace, then that item make from copper, which is, again, This is your converse, which is we flip them, which is if an item is a necklace, then that item made from copper, which is if you go up to the jewelry box that we have. So the first thing is, again, it's got to be a necklace first, which is, hey, this is the necklace. There's only one necklace, so we don't care about anything else. We don't care about the ring, the bracelets, the pendant. We don't care anything else, which is, again, if we don't care about those items, we don't care about that item either, which is now, is this true? If the item is a necklace, then the item is made from copper, which is, again, you can see that this is a true statement based on this jewelry box. We have a necklace, which is made from copper, which is true. And again, similarly, looking at this item here, how do we do the, let's do the inverse first, right? Remember, the inverse is you kept the item the same. Copper is first and necklace is second. You kept them the same, but you negate them. So that's what the inverse is. This item right here is the item does not make from copper, and this item is not a necklace, which is, again, we kept the copper in front, we kept the necklace in the back. It's just that now we negate them, which is if an item is not made from copper, then the item is not a necklace, which is, again, if you want to verify the statement, you can see this thing here. If the item does not make from copper, then again, everything else, this thing here is not copper. So again, the first item is true. Well, not copper, right? So the first item is true. This is silver, this is gold, this is platinum. So those are the three items that is not copper. And the item is not a necklace, which is also true. They are not a necklace, which is, looking at this thing here, they are true, which is, for this inverse, the statement will be true. And like I say, if it's the converse true, the inverse will be true. And lastly, the contrapositive reminder, we need to flip them around and negate them, which is the necklace have to go in front and the copper have to go in the back, which is, they say if an item is not a necklace, then is not made from copper. So if you go back to this item here, so the only thing we get to X out is we ask, hey, if the item is not a necklace, which is, this is not a necklace, this is not necklace, this is not necklace, this is not necklace. And they say if the item is not a necklace and the item does not make out copper, and once again, hey, there is a chance that this is false. The first thing is true, the second one is false, which is that will be a false statement, meaning as long as there's a chance that the statement is false, the whole statement will be false. So in this case, hey, there is one condition, there's one time that statement is false. And if there's a one time that statement is false, the whole statement is false for this item here. So again, in the sense that this is what they ask you to do, is they ask you to see if you can find the converse, find the inverse, find the contrapositive. Okay. And number 11, they ask you to construct this truth table, which is, this truth table is just basically the and, the or, and the or. So looking at this thing here, the first thing we need to do is we need to do inside the parenthesis. If you were to do this item by hand, this is what we need to do, is we need to do inside the parenthesis first, and inside the parenthesis, I don't have the negation of P. So again, negation of P is false, 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 true, true. So that's your negation of P. And looking at this thing here, you can do the parenthesis, which is inside the parenthesis, you have the negation of P and Q. So what does the AND statement tell us to do? Well, the AND statement tell us that, hey, as long as there's a false, then the result is false. So this is the two column I'm looking at. I'm looking at the negation of P and Q. So the negation of P and Q, as long as there's a false, the result is false. As long as there's a false, the result is false. This is the one time that the AND statement is true, and this is false. And again, we got that first parenthesis. Whatever the first parenthesis is represented by this item here. Now, in order for me to do the second parenthesis, I need the negation of Q. So again, if you do this item on your page and then you don't have to type all this thing in, because if you look on the bottom, they say this item are not graded, right? All the gray item that is not going to be gray. This thing here is just for you to practice. So in this item here, the negation of Q will be false, true, false, true. And now we can finish this. Well, not finish it yet, because we need one more, which is we need the P or negation of Q. So what is the OR statement? Reminder that the OR statement tell you as long as there's a true, the result is true. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the P and the negation of Q, meaning again, we're looking at P negation of Q, and looking at this thing here, the first two items will be true because the T value is true. This is the, and this item will be true because the negation of Q is true. And once we have this thing here, this is the one and only time that is false for the OR statement, because when both of them are false, the OR statement is false. And now they ask you, hey, compare the two parentheses together, which is the two parentheses. You have the first parenthesis and you have the second parenthesis there. And again, reminder, what is the OR statement? The OR statement is as long as, again, this is what you need to ask yourself. Don't lose in transaction. Don't lose on what operation that they ask you to do. Because looking at this thing here, we are dealing with the OR statement, and the OR statement tell me as long as there's a true. As long as there's a true, the result is true. As long as there's a true, the result is true. As long as there's a true, the result is true. So in this case, all of them will be true. So again, looking at this thing here, we have a true here, a true here, a true here. So in this chapter, when it's all true, we say that this is a tautology. A tautology, which is in this case, this is what we have. So they ask you this thing here, this will be a tautology because it's true for all possible value, meaning the final product, no matter what you have, is true throughout. So all of the item is true. That's why it's a tautology. And let's take a look at number 12. More true table. So they ask you to translate this item here. They give you your P, they give you your Q. So singing, Hong is singing, Teresa is in a history class. So this is what they ask you to do, is construct this statement one, which is Teresa is not in history class or Hong is not singing, which is, remember, Teresa is your Q. This is your OR statement. Again, the negation of Q or the negation of P. So that's what we have, which is negation of Q or negation of P. And this thing here, if and then, reminder, the if and then, this is one single item, which is the if and then statement. So if and then, if Teresa is in history class, which is Q, then Hong is not in singing, which is P. So Q, negation of P. If Q, then the negation of P, which is not singing. So once you have this thing here, Alex are nice enough that whatever you type there, they tell you bring it down in terms of this item. And now they ask you to construct this truth table, which is the first statement is here, and the second statement is here. So let's construct the first item, which is, again, if you don't remember, you can always do it, which is, again, the first thing we need the negation of Q, which is negation of Q will be false, true, false, true. And again, once we have the negation of Q, we need the negation of P, which is negation of P, which is negation of P, which is false, false, true, true. So we got the two items we needed. We got the two items we needed to compute. We have the two items that we need to compute the statement number one, which is, remember, what is the criteria? The criteria is the or, meaning as long as there's a true, the or statement, as long as there's a true, the result is true. As long as there's a true, the result is true. So in this case, the only time that is false is when both of them are false. And again, what about this item here? What about the next statement? We have the two items we needed. If you don't want to add more, we don't need to, which is they ask you, look at Q, go into the negation of P. So again, we are not looking at P, we are not looking at the negation of Q, but we're looking at the Q going to the negation of P. Meaning, again, this is the one and only time that is false, which is when the first thing is true and the second one is false. That's the only time that by the conditional statement, the one single statement, conditional statement to be false. Everywhere else, again, this thing here, true, implied true. So again, this thing's still true. So looking at this thing here, they are true. And if you answer the next question, on next part, this is what they ask you is, hey, what can this thing be? Which is reminder. Looking at this thing here, they are statement one and statement two is equivalent because the true statement one is the same value for statement two. Again, no matter what we have, as you can see, they are exactly matched, right? They are exactly matched line per line, meaning, again, the first thing is false, and again, the next thing is true, meaning they are matched line per line. So in this case, this is what we call equivalent. So the two items here, they are exactly matched. And if they are matched, we call it equivalent. Okay. If it's not matched, then it's not equivalent. And let's take a look at number 13. So number 13, this is what they ask you to do is construct the truth table to see if it's a valid or invalid argument. And looking at this thing here, this is the argument that they want you to construct. So again, we did this in class, which is, again, they give you the P, they give you the Q, and you need to translate a symbolic or premise one to this line. You need to translate the premise two to this line, and you need to translate the conclusion to this line. So those are your three items that you need to translate, which is translate the first item. If you translate the first item, this is what we have, is we say if, remember, this is the if and then statement, which is if and then, which is your single error, which is if what happened, if the conference is in London, which is, again, that's your P, Anything related to London is P. Martina is a attendee, which is again, anything related to Martina will be your Q. So this is what we have is if P, then Q. And then line 2, they tell you that the conference is in London, which is anything related to London is your P. And therefore, in conclusion, the conclusion is Martina is an attendee, which is again P arrow Q, PQ. And like I mentioned in class, like I mentioned last time, Aleks is good to you guys in the sense that whatever you did, they did it here, which is again, they give you this truth table that you need to construct, which is in order to construct this truth table, you can do it on a piece of paper and then type the final result in if you want to, or you can do it on this item here, which is reminder to do this thing here. The first thing we can do, or the first thing we need to do is we need to do the P arrow Q. And again, P arrow Q reminder that this is the one and only time that the conditional statement is false. Everywhere else will be true. So everywhere else is true here. The only time the conditional statement is false is the first thing is true and the second one is false. So we can add more item, which is now we can do the and statement, which is again, the and statement, they tell you, take a look at the parenthesis. Where is your parenthesis? And take a look at the Q, which is in this case, my parenthesis is here. Whatever in my parenthesis is there. And my Q is here, which is whatever that item is, which is I am not looking at P. I'm just looking at that item and Q. Remember, the and statement is as long as there's a false. As long as there's a false, the result is false. If I don't see a false, the result will be true, which is this is what we have, which is true, false, true, false. And if you want to, yes, you don't have to, but if you want to, and this is what I ask you guys to do, is just move the Q to the right, because you want to have the Q to the right, because reminder that the single arrow, the order matter, and since the order matter, whatever on the right hand side, just move it to the right. So this is what we have is we have the item in my parenthesis, which is whatever this item is represented by this column. And I have the Q, which is in this case, this is why I asked you to move to right, because again, you just look from left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. Again, the only time the conditional statement is false is the first thing is true and the second one is false. But in this case, both of this item here, the first thing is true and the second one is true. So in this case, this is what we have is they are true. So if they are true, then we say that this is a tautology, which is again, if it's all true, meaning no matter what you bend, this will always be true. And again, if we call it a tautology in 3.4, we just change the tautology to become a valid item, which is a valid item, which is, that's what our truth table look like. And we need to translate that to this here. So this is what we have in terms of number 13, which is you need to translate your item. You need to translate the item into symbolic. And then from symbolic, you need to ask yourself, can you construct the truth table? And if the truth table is a tautology, we say it's valid. If it's not a tautology, then it's not valid, it's invalid. So let's take a look at this item here, which is they still give you the same item, which is they give you the P, they give you the Q, they give you the premise 1, they give you the premise 2, and they give you the conclusion. So the first thing they ask you to do, the first thing they want you to do is you need to put this in symbolic, which is if the bake sale is on Thursday, which is what is related to Thursday, Thursday will be my P. Anything related to Thursday will be my P, which is the if and then is a single error, which is again P. If the bake sale is on Thursday, then Jose is making cupcake. Anything related to Jose will be your Q. Jose is making a cupcake, which is your Q. Imply the bake is on Thursday, which is your B. So again, this is what they ask you to do. And they don't ask you to construct the truth table, but to be sure, you can construct the truth table. Again, this is just the P, the Q, do it on the piece of paper. And if it's a tautology, then it's a valid argument. If it's not a tautology, then it's an invalid argument. So again, once you have this thing here, if you construct the truth table, you will see that this will be an invalid argument. Okay, so construct the truth table, and then you will see that it's an invalid item. Yes, they don't ask you, but you can construct them so that you can see if it's valid or invalid. Okay. So question. Let me see if this thing pop up. So again, this is the reason why it's invalid earlier. I don't know on your test if they have this item here, which is again, they basically have, if this thing here, if you come out to be any of this bottom item, it will be invalid. So again, we set up again, if the bake sale is on Thursday, Jose will make cupcake. Jose make cupcake, therefore it's not on Thursday because it's in this form. That's why it's invalid. Okay, and again, you can do the truth table and you will see that it's still invalid. I am not sure if this is available for you for you on the test. If it does, then you just look at this item. If they don't ask you for the truth table, if it does not, then you have to construct the truth table. Okay, so that will be the review for us. That will be the review for us, which is that's the 14th problem on your review. So good luck on your tests over the weekend, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.